I braved the 7 seas, lost in time, seeking out freedom far and wide, with a heart burdened by the night. The spirit yearned to be a bird in flight. I found myself beneath the southern sky. It taught me the song of goodbye, but I never could run from my mind. So I traveled deeper to find I belong to this land. I belong to this land. Across this red hot dusty land, so far and so foreign from my mother's hands, and the people, they spoke in different tongues, and I knew this is where I belong. We belong to this land. We belong to this land. Belong to this land. We belong to this land. This place we all call home sees me as one of its own, and no matter where I travel or how far, the dreaming brings a soul back to its heart. We belong to this land. 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 We belong to this. We belong to this land. We belong to this. We belong to this land. My blood. We belong.
What a wonderful way to start a Sunday morning. How brilliant was that, man? Yeah. Do you want to introduce our guest?
So have we got Colin on here?
I was going to bring him on. Do you want to do an introduction and we just bring him on?
Colin Lillie may well become the most famous immigrant in Australia. He's famously married to Jacinta Nampijinpa Price, who is leading contender for leadership of the Liberal Party. Get rid of the old right-wing guard and bring in a bit of fresh blood. He's also a very, very accomplished musician in his own right, as you could just see from that song, This Land. And there is a documentary about to be released called This Land, which is about the making of this song. And he goes around Australia and talks to all the different people that make up and their participation in the song. So at a time when there is a lot of talk about the failure of multiculturalism, that we've turned a successful immigrant country into a polyglot country without a core. This is a very timely song. He believes that we can be unified through art, that art is basically the voice of the gods that will bring us together and unite us as a country and heal the wounds, not just of our personal past, but of our national past. And here we have the very famous, very accomplished Colin Lillie.
G'day, Colin. How you going? Welcome to the cafe.
Hey, Michael. Hey, John. How are you?
That was fantastic, brother. That was seriously fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah, great song. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Took it.
I was just thinking though, when I was in Broome once, I found these graveyards of pearl divers who'd come from China, 100 years ago or something. Their family wouldn't know where they were, so they're born in China and they die in Broome. And it's interesting for you that you're born in such a different environment, as you say in the song, from your mother's hands. And then here you are in the heart of Australia, the red heart of Australia. It's such an interesting journey.
Yeah, it's a strange one. Like for someone like myself, I think when I was listening to the Men at Work, Martin Down Under, like would you call it, like when I was a kid, to think when I was like singing that song as a kid that I would be actually living here. It's something that I never imagined, and never imagined to be somebody that would be singing songs, writing songs and performing music either. So that's the beautiful thing that I discovered. I guess if you look at the pearl divers, they're something that starts from a grainy sand becomes something so beautiful and priceless, like when it gets as it matures, so I feel like I'm like one of those pearls, like, I came to the desert, I got caught in the sand, I discovered my soul, and then I became this beautiful, like I'm grown into this beautiful thing that has allowed me to become the man I am today. And it's all because I was able to come to Australia.
Yeah.
You say in the documentary, sorry, Colin, you say in the documentary that this land greeted you like an old friend you didn't know you had.
John, I can't hear you. John.
Oh, you can't hear me?
I can't hear you. I can't hear you, John.
Oh, can you hear me?
I can hear you, but I can't hear John.
Oh, I can hear John. How bizarre is that? John, why don't you go out and come back in? That might fix it.
All right. Bye-bye.
I was talk about you. I missed the intro and everything. I hope it was nice. I was going to say, I hope he's saying something nice about me there, like so.
Yeah, no, he was saying that we had a great guest, so they fell out. So he just got you up as a substitute. He said, he said, meet Johor, he'd come on. No, he was really great. There's the other thing too, when you're talking about art, I 100% agree with that. That is my religion. I really believe in all the troubles we're having now, the one thing everyone's missing is the importance of art, new art right now, here, writing about this time, not using old songs written for other times. We need new art to re-identify ourselves as who we are as Australians. And that's what I think your song does staggeringly beautifully. Yeah.
Thanks, Michael. I guess I was very surprised. I was expecting that, the art today, like, especially with the woke cancel culture that goes on, I was expecting them to create some new form of art that would be exciting, that would highlight exactly what it is, the message they're trying to say. But you're right, all they've done is put people in boxes, and they've just become a moment of mediocrity and a creative space where it's a safe space to create art that's safe. And like that. So I was slightly I am slightly it's not like it was the 70s. It's not like it was the punk era came out and change had to come, and change came and everything was part of that change. Art, punk, the whole being able to express yourself. What came out of this this new way of looking at art or presenting art was that the freedom that art was fighting for in the 70s was now being taken away from the artists, if that makes sense. And then you've got all those 70s punk rockers going, why on earth, what were we fighting for then? Why on earth did we basically say and do the things? So I appreciate that very much, like that, what you were saying, because that's what it's about. It's about re-energizing and saying, look, come on, we're better than this. This is what, this is why we're artists.
Yeah. Well, I think art, especially poetry for me, is is God's way of untangling our souls. You get all this mess in you, and then out of that crap, you have a song, or a poem, or a piece of art, or something that makes sense of it.
Yeah.
And other people see it, go, oh, I get it. And this is how we communicate. So I think it's our connection to God, to be honest, or the gods. I've got an idea that beneath us all is like this ongoing river of poetry, and our lives, our separate lives, are like the geysers, are like the songs of that one connected poem. And that's why I think they've cancelled artists. I think they've done that. I got cancelled as a playwright because they know how powerful we are, and they don't want us out there. Because that song could bring a country together. That's not what they're trying to divide us. The last thing they want is a song that fixes that divide. So suddenly become dangerous for creating something beautiful, and that really shows how lost we are.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing that what I'm hoping for from the song is that I can create a school musical from it, and that then each of the artists that are in it become sort of animals of Australia, and then you have the little boy traveling through the country creating his song, and then basically from that they've all got their own unique little song, but they all come together, and so that's the plan. That is the ultimate plan for me, to take it to the point where we're putting it in the schools and we're sharing it. Sorry, John, how are you?
Well, can you hear me now or not?
Oh,
I can hear you.
I can hear.
Oh, you can hear me, Colin?
I can hear you.
So what you're saying, which is very radical, is that unity is our strength, not diversity. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. I feel that.
If I hear that word "diversity is our strength" one more time, I think
you just probably lost 2 Facebook pages just from that comment.
I think diversity is conformity. That is all diversity is.
Yes, it's all.
That's all you do.
Of course, it is.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. So, can we shift straight to the political for a moment? The new hate laws that have been just jammed through Parliament in a single day have basically woken up the country in a way that COVID did. Really, it's just like you can pass laws without consulting anybody. You can. How is this even possible? 6,000 submissions they never read, of course, because they altered the legislation on the morning it was jammed through both houses of Parliament. So how is that going to impact on the nation and its creativity and its artists and its people and its public discourse?
I think it's going to be a night. Well, they said it was like, if we go back a bit, in Scotland, they came up with the similar laws before they came up with them in the UK, and they said it wouldn't affect festivals like the Fringe Festival. It wouldn't affect certain aspects of how art is created, how stories are told. But it did. It changed everything. It took historical stories and they made them have to be told in a modern way, which was about the diversity. Let's do Shakespeare, and Shakespeare's been one of those things that's always been played around with it. Like artists have always played around with it. They've always tried to do something different so the story could be told different, so they could tell the story different, and they could tell it in their own authentic way. But now it seems that the laws over there were forcing people to have to do that. So then if you're being forced to do that, I believe something's being taken out of your authentic art, and then you're not able to create the art that your soul demands you to create. So hate laws are basically saying that if you want to have a story that has an argument or a fight, and it's based on some cultural breakdown, or it's based on some race or a religious argument, then the artist or the creator is going to second guess everything that they're doing just because they might think they might be breaking a law. So it's also a bit like when you're trying to, like when we were home recently in Scotland, sitting around in a restaurant, and us being the kind of family that we are, having an open conversation about the things that we were seeing. And then watching people look at us and we're going, oh, we're not in Australia, because people were sort of looking at the topics we were talking about, and it seemed it came across that they were very, oh, you can't really be talking about it. You've got to be careful what you say because you might get in trouble, you know. And if that's the case, then authentic stories are going to die, because no longer will we be able to just share our truth. We'll be sharing a form of it because we'll be afraid to speak our heart. Like, because at the end of the day,
it's a weird collusion. It's a weird collusion between bureaucratic agendas and government propaganda and the media, which always dignifies extremes. So the muddling middle is just completely left out of the entire public debate. So, you know, as long as you're from some ethnic minority or you've just arrived or whatever, that's all fine. But if you're not a minority of some kind, you've got no hope of getting into the media and no hope of entering the public discourse. So you are ignored. And I think part of the curdling of Australia, the sadness that you see around you, is that the stories aren't being told. Nobody's listening. It's a defeated population which has been entirely cut out of the public discourse. What do you think? You're in the middle of the country. You see a lot.
I think if we look at Stalin and Hitler, what was the first thing they went for? What was the first thing that those two regimes went for? Those two political movements, they went for the arts. They attacked the arts, and they attacked the arts by removing the things like satire, you know, freedom of like the cabaret. That's what Hitler went for. He went for the cabaret straight away, because that's where the majority of the nation would go to watch their comedians. They would watch their bands and stuff. And then Stalin created a narrative, you know, the communist realism, like, you know, like that was basically about creating movies, stories, and songs that aligned with their way of thinking. So then the nation was flooded by these. So I feel that, like, when we're here in the middle of the desert and you're in Alice Springs and you see Alice Springs, I've always said that Alice Springs is like God's petri dish. You know, we've got this beautiful place and God drops things in there to see what happens. And if it doesn't work, we go, oh. It's been like I've never lived anywhere in the world that has been so tolerant. I have never, like, tolerance is a beautiful thing when it is everybody is doing it together, when everybody tolerates it. But it's now become a thing where only one group of people are allowed to tolerate, and the other group of people are allowed to behave whatever way they feel like. And, you know, it's at the end of the day, it's like a family. Like, you know, you've got a family, and if the whole family's behaving badly, but only one person's tolerating it, then that becomes abuse. And when that abuse happens, then something uglier comes out of that. And it might not come out straight away, but it'll come out further down the line. So if we're going to tell people in and around Australia that you must now tolerate, you must constantly tolerate, and if you don't tolerate, then you can be criminally charged, or you can go to jail, or you can be fined if you speak up on what your eyes and ears are basically seeing and hearing. If you express that, then you could be charged with a criminal offence, because we want you to tolerate. That's going to end up being abuse, and when people get abused, you know what happens. And that's not me trying to be a conspiracy theorist. That's me saying history, the past, the things that people have had to go through before us shows us, you know.
A critique that the Muslims often make of multiculturalism is that if you believe in everything, you believe in nothing. And ironically, people think that they would embrace multiculturalism, but in essence, they often don't. If you believe in everything, you believe in nothing. And that's kind of what you're talking about, yes?
Yeah. But I'm saying, but if you believe in God, then you do believe in everything. So, like, you know, it's like you have God in your life, you have a higher power, then it is that you do believe in everything, and it's understanding that if like this is where I get crosshairs, and this is where I get sort of confused with many of things. I look at the world and I go, okay, you don't believe Christianity and Islam is just a seriously bad divorce that happened in the Old Testament. That's all it is. Like one mob went with one person, and the other mob went the other, and then at some point they're coming back, and the arguments and everything we see in this world in regards to faith, we've seen them all before. It's just at a different era, and it's just a modern time. And you just live in a world where we look at us. I'm in Alice Springs. You guys are all over Australia. We're here communicating. We live in a world now where it's instant. We see it straight away. But with the different faiths, it is the idea that one is better than the other. That is all it is. And it's like, that's the bottom line, because if you take it into its core values of what each of those faiths are, it is about believing in a higher power, believing that we are here to serve a purpose for that higher power, and it's meant to be love, And I'm going to start sounding like a hippie in a minute, but it is love. It's love, and it's harder to love than it is to hate. It is so much easier to hate. It is so much easier to go, I hate you, than I love you. Because love means to work at something. That is what it means to do. Hate doesn't. Hate means not to even bother at looking at how you can fix it. Right? These speeches have taken love out of the idea, because it's made the current government an easy job to do nothing. Because it's easier to hate than it is to love. And
you've made a very powerful documentary on the making of this song called This Land. So when will that actually be released? When will it become available to the general public? Because it really does include all sorts of elements from all around the country, and speaks to the division that we're currently experiencing in the country. So, yeah.
Yeah, so the documentary, I was hoping to get it out on Australia Day, but that didn't happen, and Miss Pauline Hanson had her big movie come out anyway, so it would have been lost in the whole thing. So I'm in the process of attempting to try to get a PR plan up and running, because it's really, I feel it's so important to get this out to as many people, because it isn't just about a song. It's about what Australia means to me. And it also is about the fact that, we have, everybody has a story. Everybody has a story. And when people are told your story is not as important as that person's story, then that's when people start neglecting who they are, neglecting themselves. And I can understand why, I'm married to an Aboriginal Australian. I've seen what happens in communities. I've watched, and I learn, and I feel, and I've got empathy, and I've got my own story, and I can, what you need to know your own story so you can connect. Everybody can connect together. So the documentary is something that is where I feel it would be great for it to get into people's households. It would be great to get it into schools. It would be great to get it into onto Netflix or something. Because
have you considered the Albie Mangles approach?
Sorry, Michael, what's that?
Have you? There was when I was about 12, my father took me to a town hall, and in it was this crazy looking wild man, and this was like in the 70s. His name was Albie Mangles, and he traveled the world and made his own documentaries. He just wanted to be free, and he took it to town hall after town hall. In those days, there was no internet, no Instagram, no one was going to fund him, and yet he made a fortune. And because you're bringing Australia together, if you go through the top, you're going to go through all their filters, because they just want to divide us. I'm sorry, they do. Yeah. But what if you came from the bottom up to town halls? Yeah. Because every single town in the country, even some of the ones where they're like ghost towns, they still have these iconic town halls. We were taking plays there. They've actually got stages that haven't been used,
Yeah.
bats in there. And what they do afterwards is they have cup of teas and they all sit there, and that would bring people together. So not only would they watch the documentary, but then you could bring people together for an hour, hour and a half afterwards, sitting there talking about the documentary. So
Yeah.
that actually it could actually be transformative rather than a Netflix where they watch it and then screen to the next thing. And so it
Yeah.
could be, so, and you could make people, because there was a thing to try bring people back to town halls, because going just back to one thing you said about we have so many ways to connect now, and we do, and yet even though we have more ways to connect than ever, one of our greatest pandemics is loneliness.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with that.
And so
Totally
this
agree
would
with
be
that.
a way to actually use art and afterwards, and you wouldn't have to be there every one. It's just this, here's the documentary. What do people think? Come down and have a seat.
Yeah.
So it could just propagate itself around the country.
Yeah, I was actually thinking of something similar, but more of a Q&A thing at the end, which was like which was, but that's something that's a great way of looking at it, is taking it, just hoofing it round and going back on the going back on the tour. That and it's also adapting what I already know with the work I've done previously and taking it that way. I'm fortunate that I've had a lot of support from the IPA, and they've helped. They're working on creating an education program to get it into schools through the. But yeah, so with the IPA, they've really helped me to connect with people, because one thing I didn't want to do was ask the government for any money. I did not want to ask the government for a single penny. And it's been funded by hardworking individuals who basically just wanted to see the change happen. So yeah, taking it to those individuals who have helped fund it, that sounds like a much better approach on how we could do it. So that's something I'm going to look into that, Michael. I'll look into that.
And your conversations, like they're saying here, true regard, they're a forgotten resource, but it's because you're actually going to start questions. And the beauty of it, there's people there that can get together, rather than a Q&A, get together and talk. Then they're allowed to propagate the answers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, Colin, you're talking of stories. I mean, there's stories falling out of the trees in Australia. I mean, Michael's just been driving all around the country and produced this beautiful book called Goodbye Road, Australia's Broken Heartlands, which is a lovely book. And but you've got your own very vivid story, going from being a bit of a wild lad, from what I can gather, in Scotland, to coming out here and ending up in the top of the river. I think you've been very open about your history and all that. So do you mind just talking about that? Because a lot of people don't see the opportunity for redemption. They go down a path, they drink too much, have personal difficulties, all the rest of the addiction story, and they feel there's no way out, that there's no personal redemption. So if you don't mind, would you mind talking about that side?
Can I add a little bit to that too? Just to add to his questions, how close to train spotting was your youth?
I think anybody and everybody who grew up during the 80s and the 70s, 80s and the 90s, in Scotland, were connected in some way to a life that was very similar to train spotting. Edinburgh was a very sinister, dark place then, and I had a lot of, although I was from what you call the sticks. The folk for Uptown would say I was a tutor for the sticks. I was certainly somebody who didn't want to be where I was, so I was always looking for a way out, no matter what. I was trying, and it didn't start as me trying to get out in a physical sense. It was me trying to get out on an emotional, mental sense, and that's why alcohol and drugs was such an easier option, because I could stay in one place, but I was escaping. So I thought, so for me, I was definitely somebody who ran, and I guess I worked up in Edinburgh. And the first job I ever really had, I had jobs when I was a kid, like paper run, and I worked in a local club collecting collecting bottles and glasses, but that was only because so I could get close to drink, like, you know, at a young age. So I was getting drunk, and you know, you end up in a situation where you are, in a physical sense, thinking you're bigger than you are, and then you have to become bigger than you are, because each time you take an approach, you end up with a bigger bloody nose or a bigger black eye. But yeah, I guess my story is very much similar to, like, that. I always took the attitude once I came out of recovery that was always somebody, you know, somebody worse off than me. You know, like, my relationship with my dad now is a lot better than what it was then. Like, you know, my relationship with my dad was a very volatile relationship. It was the kind of thing that, you know, he didn't know how to parent a kid like me. Had no idea, because I had no idea how to be a kid, because I grew up in a family where I had my mother, who was extremely unwell. She had polio, post-polio, in and out of hospital. I had to help raise myself, raise my brother while my dad was away working. I had to learn to cook, clean. You know, they call them young carers now. It was just part and parcel of who I was. And you know, there was other people, like I had my cousin who was in the same boat. Like, you know, he basically, like, but for some reason, my auntie Anne had this really positive attitude in life, where my family were a lot more down. And my dad used to just not be able to deal with noise. You know, as a kid, he would react to noise in a way that was impactful and quick, easy, you know, for him. And that was violence. Like, you know, violence was easier. And back then it was just seen as how fathers and sons were. And then, you know, like, as I got to an older teenage life, from the age of 14, my passion in life was alcohol. And then when I got introduced to drugs, that was it for me. Like, you know, life couldn't get any better. It was fantastic. The freedom that I got from using and abusing was just crazy. And in between that, I would have life happen in between that, and I would play the victim, because of this, because of that, because of them. There was always a cause. There was always something that was in the way. And I never imagined that for 1 minute could I get out of that, like, you know. And I don't think I ever wanted to get out of that, because I loved it. I loved drinking. I thought drinking was the best thing in the whole world. It was like, you know, when you've gone on a long drive and you open up your gas, and it goes like that when you open it up, and you put the nozzle and you can hear the engine taking that fuel. That's what drink was me. It was my fuel. It's what I would go for. It's like, and I would get myself into stupid places and situations, you know, and you know, I know some people say, oh yeah, I had a problem with the drink. I slept on the street. Times I wouldn't want to go home to partners because I had just got too drunk, or I was too embarrassed. I would be, you know, growing up where I grew up, everybody knew everybody, so you would get dropped off by the local cops, and like, where have you been? You know, like, and by the time I was 25, I was in a world of blackouts. I'd wake up in places and that and go, how the? I remember waking up in Glasgow once. I remember waking up in Glasgow in this strange apartment, right? And I thought I was in Edinburgh. I woke up and I walked out and I went downstairs, and I thought I was going to get a bus back home, and I heard all these Glaswegian accents, and I went, Jesus, there's a lot of Glaswegians in Edinburgh today. What the heck's that? Like, you know, and you know, before I knew it, like, I went, I'm in Glasgow. How the hell did I get to Glasgow? I woke up in Aberdeen on a bus going to Aberdeen with the scariest looking man I'd ever seen in my life. And he's having this all-out conversation with me, and I'm going, man, who are you? And he's going, oh, we're going up to Aberdeen. We're going to meet some people. And I'm going, meet some people? How did I get here? Meanwhile, I've got people looking for me because I've been missing for 3 days back home in the village. Like, where's Colin? Like, nobody's got a clue where I've gone. And then I come back, and then, like, I've got my tail between my legs, hoping that'll be love and open arms. But yeah, there's only so much people can take. And then it was my mum that basically said, look, you know, I met this Irish girl, and my mum said, look, you need to leave. You need to go. You know, you need to leave. If you don't leave, you're going to be dead. You're going to be in jail, or you'll be in a mental institution. You will go mad, and give us back our telly, please. You're not selling that for your drugs. So, like, with the car, like, you know. So, like,
There's
that
an
kind
old
of thing.
expression, Colin, you know, once an addict, always an addict. What do you say to people who say that sort of thing?
Oh, I think, yeah, like, I guess yeah, there's once an addict, always an addict. If you forget you're an addict, like, you know, you can never, like, I'm a great believer. Like, I've got a good friend who I've just been hanging out with in Adelaide. He does a lot of recovery. He's a nice, he likes to say he's recovered from his addiction. But he is working on himself. So I like to say, each time I achieve something, it reminds me I'm still in recovery. Because from the age of 14 up until the day that I woke up in Alice Springs, everything I ever did in my whole life was alcohol and drugs. Everything. There was nothing that I did not do that wasn't connected to. So when you wake up with the sense that once an addict, always an addict, of course, I am always in recovery. Because if I forget that, then that's when the monster can sneak back in. And I know there's a lot of people don't understand that. And I don't want anybody to understand that. What I'm proud of is the family I have now and the life I'm living right now, because I am an alcoholic addict, because I am in recovery, and because every day I get up, I try to be a better person. And that's what God expects me to do now.
Do you think there's a nexus between this sort of very raw experience and your current accomplishments? You know, well regarded as a musician, and a lot of this raw experience came out in your album Glass Homes, for instance. Do you think that's, if you hadn't had that experience, you wouldn't be the person you are today?
Absolutely. If I hadn't, that's a bit like saying, it's a bit like looking at life and saying, okay, I'm just going to drop you in this situation here and you are going to be this. And it's like, well, I can't be this unless I had done everything that came along, you know. I cannot be, you know, excuse me, you know, my wife is in circles that I'm like, what in the name? Like, holy moly. You know, like, would you call it? But the thing is, I'm along beside her because of the man I am, not because of anything else. She loves me because of all that. She loves me for what it has brought to our family, because what it brought to our family was an experience, a lived experience that a lot of people need. And our family needed, and I needed her lived experience so that I could see that I'm not alone in this world.
She's such a glamour. You know what I mean? If she's in the room, she's such a glamour. She's got that natural charisma. If she's in a room, everybody's looking at her, and it's amazing.
She is. But
John,
you might understand.
Colin, can we just go back a tad? Because you were saying was so profound that everything was drugs and alcohol. Everything was just the norm, really.
Yeah.
There must have been a catalytic moment where something suddenly made you go stop, or did it happen over a period of time, like a few catalytic moments, or was there something that just hit you like a brick?
There's been a lot of bricks hit me many a time in my life. Like, you know?
You're from Edinburgh. God, there's been a lot of bricks. How you communicate. It's like your mobile phone. Hey, Colin.
You know, you'd be at the pub, and the next minute there'd be somebody flipping gone for a go, and it's like, all right then. But yeah, there's. I guess for me, my catalyst was waking up in the Todd River in Alice Springs, being kicked in the chest by an Aboriginal woman. An old Aboriginal woman who thought I was dead. You know, she thought I was dead. Like I'd been on the sauce for 3 days. I didn't know where I was, and I got kicked. And I lay there, looking at this old dear kicking me, and she told me I needed to go home. I don't belong here. And she looked at me and she genuinely said, I don't belong here. And my partner at the time, my son's mum, I remember being on the phone to her dad and saying, I just can't do this. I just cannot do this. Like, would you go? He says, well, go home and everything will be all right. And so, and I remember saying to myself, you never came all the way across the world to bring the same problems that you had over in Scotland here. You have been given an opportunity to have a better life, to have something better, not just better for you, but better for your son. And I remember sitting. It was the worst. I've never had a hangover like it again, because it was my last hangover. And I remember looking at my son and looking at. I remember looking at the bottom of the toilet and then looking up at my son, because he was only nearly a year. And I went, nah, I'm not having this anymore. And I remember the pain in my side, because I think that old woman thought, oh my God, we can't have a white man found dead here. We'll get the blame for it, you know. And I call it, like, would you call it, the Aboriginal CPR, you know, just kick them until they come back to life.
Also, can you point out the Todd River is famous because it's often dry. So for the people overseas watching, how much river was in the river? How much water was in the river?
There was nothing. That's why I was in it, because it's like you can lie there and it's like, you know. So I must have passed out. But and she was kicking me in the chest, and she was just basically. And I wanted to belong here. I wanted to live here because I discovered something in me that I had never ever felt in my whole entire life. I felt I had lost my soul. And, you know, when you feel like you've lost your soul, and I was raised up fairly religious, like, you know, I was the one that would go to church because it was my sense of freedom. I could sing in church. I could belong to something great, right? I thought I had lost that because I'd walked away from God. I'd walked away from my faith. And, you know, I went, as we were talking about earlier, I went looking at other faiths to see what it was all about. I mean, my family were Protestant, and my grandmother heard went to Catholic chapel, and she wouldn't talk to me for a month because she was so angry with me that I had gone to chapel. And I was just trying to tell her that I just wanted to understand what all the arguments and all the fighting was all about. So I had.
Can I just interject there? Sorry to be a pain. My parents had to get married in the back of a church in this tiny town in Wales because Mum was Catholic and he was Protestant. And the priest told them, "You will never last," because people in Australia don't realise the Protestants and Catholics are at each other's throats. They've just had their 60th wedding anniversary.
See.
You know?
That's because they came to Australia and they could see the.
But that I'm just saying, I was the same. You know, you're going to church. This was it, and it was really strange division because we were actually the same religion. We were Christians, and yet it was so divided.
Yeah. And that's the thing that I'd felt I had given up, and I didn't realize that God hadn't given up on me. So then going, you know, having that point of that awakening, looking around at my son and going to myself, geez, nah, that's not what. So the catalyst for me was being kicked in the chest by an old Aboriginal woman telling me I didn't belong, and me having this hunger. And you want to know, John, like, I'm not afraid to talk about these things in the open because it is who I am. But it does worry me on who my wife is and how people can manipulate that so that they can use that against my wife, you know, because that is the world we live in. You know, there's always that. And that goes all the way back to what we're talking about at the very beginning, the hate speech laws, you know, not being able to be your true authentic self because you're afraid on how your true authentic self may be read and may be, you know, adapted to somebody else's narrative. And that's the beautiful thing about my wife. She basically says, no, you be you and we'll be us, because that's how you do it. That is how you do it. And that's how you get your 60 years being married. That's how you get your your recovery by being.
Well, we are in this weird age of a puritanism that, you know, people are expected to be spotless in the public light, not to have had any past or any misguided assignations or whatever. And so you get this incredibly bland people in Parliament that really have no backstory, no history, no experience with life. Nothing's ever gone wrong for them. They have no capacity to understand the people that they are supposedly representing. Look at the state of politics today. It's as colourless and as dead. And look at the fight going on in the Liberal Party for leadership. It's just, what a bunch of, you know, old right wingers battling it out for the prize, which is a sinking prize because the Liberal Party is collapsing. So this might not be appropriate to ask, but the Jacinta Price for PM Facebook pages is shut for the moment. Do you know why?
I've got no idea. I didn't even know there was a Jacinta Price for PM flipping.
Yes, there is. It's got 107,000 followers, and they're really they love it. They really and it's got really broad support across. And traditionally, the agencies, the intelligence agencies, usually shut down any you know, anti-immigration movement or anti-vax movement or whatever, once it pops over about 100,000 on Facebook. So I don't know whether that ties in or not.
Oh, really?
I don't know.
That happened to me. We got we had 106,000 Facebook followers, and they took we got to Darwin, they took our follow button off us. So we would have had 200,000, and then one day they just took it down. They just took it down. And all I was posting, because all I do mainly is just let people speak, because I realized most people are not allowed to speak anymore. So anyone courageous enough to speak, I let them speak. And I do it unedited, like historical documents. So some are a bit boring, but most aren't, because most people, like you would know from your upbringing, especially working class people, but most people are great storytellers. They've forgotten.
Yes.
They know how to hold an audience. They know how to tell a story. They know how to round it up. It's in us. And I think that's the way we used to communicate. You know, you turn up and we'd have stories to bring. And so that's sort of what they're shutting down. There's a great thing. Do you think, from your perspective, where you're watching your wife and everything, but you're watching Australia itself, do you think this other side that has this agenda that wants censorship and all this literally has a vision of they're trying to reach, and they realize they can't reach it if the rest of us are free, because we're going to ask them questions and their ideology is based on bullshit. And so if we debate it, it falls apart. And so that's why they don't want debate. I mean, they don't. I see your wife debating in Parliament. They don't like debating. It's just like, you're a racist.
When it comes to Jacinta debating, nobody wants to debate Jacinta because there's a truth in what she does. And you're right. It's like, you know, the thing that, see, I've got to be careful here because I could get in trouble, and not in trouble but in trouble for my wife. And if my wife is mad with me, oh my goodness, that becomes something even worse, fellas. You've got no idea. So if they're looking for Jacinta to be PM, I would not like to see what happens to anybody that gets on the wrong side, like, you know, like, because it'd be like, that's it, like, you know. But I guess, like, I want to go back to what John was saying about the how he feels that there's such a greyness in politics now. But John, that's the whole world, isn't it? Look at what we're talking about: art, literature. Look at even the news. It is all beige. Everything is beige. Everything's safe. It is a safe color. It is safety and conformity. That is what it is. If we conform, we are safe. And if we're not, and it's weird how we now live in a world where the books that we read, the stories that we hear, the songs that have lasted, the movies that have lasted, the plays that have lasted are all being created by people who were not afraid to be who they were wanting to be. That is the bottom line. That is the bottom line. And if and it goes back to that thing, to be an individuality is to be able to tell the truth about who you are to yourself, to look in a mirror and say, this is who you are. That is, for me, that's individuality. And it seems now we're living in a world where individuality is the curse of the planet, like, you know, as you're saying, Michael, to be, because real individuality is freedom, is that freedom to be who you want to be without the fear of who you want to be. And, you know, people can sit there and judge others by, look at the way they dress, look at that. I mean, even, it blows my mind, even this whole idea that, you know, like I look at the way Jacinta gets treated sometimes because she's a female. She gets treated one way. Because she's an Aboriginal female, she gets treated another way. You know, I remember being in an event and I asked Mr. Abbott after the referendum, I said to Mr. Abbott, I said, can you explain to me why it's okay for husbands to bring their wives to events and everybody's happy, but then when a female politician brings her husband to an event, it is there's a different thing going on there, you know, a different thing going on altogether. And he looked at me and he went, no, probably because it's very male orientated. And, you know, when there's another male in the room that nobody really knows, then it becomes a bit more uncomfortable. And I'm going, but then is that not the wonder? Is that not the magic of what we're being in this world, is coming together and learning all about each other? Is that not the Australian way? And part of the reason I did the documentary was because it's something that Mr. Abbott also asked me. He says, why is it Scotland, Wales, and that when they lose, they still have this sense of pride? And I said, it's because nobody's ever tried to take it away from them. Here in Australia, like, you know, nobody's ever taken away what Australia is, because what Australia is a beautiful idea, a beautiful thought that says, if you stand in any part of the world, you could be Aussie. But you couldn't stand in Kenya or Nigeria or China and say you could be Chinese. You couldn't, right? But you can say that here in Australia. And I feel that this old thinking that is coming across, people are coming across and they're not leaving at the front door of Australia, is pouring in. And because of that, we are losing that freedom. And hence, that is why we have more free thinkers coming out, doing podcasts like this, being able to allow people to speak their story, share their story, and show the world that there's nothing new going on here. But the new thing is how we're trying to shut down the storytellers. Like, you know, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Oh, I think the natural productivity and creativity of the Australian people is just being absolutely crushed, and that the totalitarian instincts of this government to control and censor people and to crush free speech is an integral part of Michael's been to go right around the country and talks constantly about how we're basically looking at a defeated population, that people are shuffling along, that they're sad, you can see it in their faces, that it's a defeated population. And a lot of this is censorship and control. They're constantly told that there's something wrong with them, that the national history is to be ashamed of, that being male is to be ashamed of, and so on and so on. So, yeah, I think free speech is really at the core a lot of our country's decline.
Yeah, and also we have laws already in place that can fight and can act upon the things that are happening right now, but nobody is willing to enforce those laws. Nobody's willing to, no lawyers, no nothing. There was no need for these hate speech laws to come through. No need for them at all, because we've got laws. Because of, like, and I'll go back, like the Australian Constitution was created by people who were the descendants of people who had been abused and had been taken from their own land and brought here, and a mixture of so many other cultures and that Constitution was there to make sure everybody here would have a go, you know, like could have a fair go. But now it seems that people want to argue that Constitution, and I go, why do you want to argue something that is clearly has worked for all this time, and now because you're arguing it, suddenly we've got all this hate, suddenly we've got all this violence, suddenly we've got all this discontent, suddenly we've got all, and that isn't because of our constitution, it's because of what's been brought over from other places. Now, I'm only saying that because at some point I had to decide, do I want to be Australian or am I going to be Scottish? Am I going to be a Scotsman living in Australia or am I going to be an Australian? And I wanted to be Australian because Australia has given me a life that I could never have had in Scotland. No chance. And so I became Australian, or I like to say a Scozzy, because, you know, I've tried my best to get rid of this accent, which is an original Australian accent, I have to say, but I love being a Scozzy. The best thing I've ever done was come to this country and sit and listen and grow and become a better version of myself, and it's like just sad to see.
Do you know what was missing with the old hate speech laws? The theatre of it, the dark theatre.
Yeah.
Because what they've done by doing what they've done, raced it through, which didn't make any sense. They've basically shown all our politicians to be powerless in the face of this draconian change, and they've come out with vague laws. So we've already had podcasters pull out because they're scared, because they're thinking I might go to jail for what? They don't even know what for. So they're just going to default to silence. This is not about hate speech laws. This is about silencing dissent right across the country, and it's really going to put a question to the Australian people: how important is freedom to you and freedom of speech? Because now you will have to risk liberty to defend it, and or lose yourself and lose your own soul if you comply and gone, because you need, especially for an artist like yourself, you can't create, like you said at the start, you can't create through a series of filters. You can't create a song through a committee going, sorry, that word's wrong, this word's wrong. No, you've just got to get it out of you and then see what the universe wants to make of it. And that's what they're trying to crush. And it just keeps coming back to the fact that they're trying to sell us a future that is just not conducive to our souls, and we know it.
Yep, and also I feel it's also the fact that they're not and this is the thing, this is the blinker thing, because if somebody if they just went like this a wee bit more, they'd be able to see that this is about a generation that's coming that is comfortable with not being able to see things on social media. It's comfortable with not being able to say this, or comfortable about holding within themselves their frustrations, their fears, and anxieties. Comfortable about creating art that goes through a specific different checklist. It's about the next generation. And if the generation that's coming just were able to see the freedom that it comes with them being able to say no. You can't say yes to everything. Like parents, like when you're a parent, you can't say yes to everything. If you say yes to everything to your kids, you raise self-righteous little shitheads, that's what you do. I mean, I was an arsehole, I was a complete arsehole. And part of the reason why my parents were the way they were, because I was an arsehole, right? Because I didn't know how to be anything else. And that is what's going to happen with the next generation, is that they will not know how to be anything else but people that are censored, people that are told you can't say this, people who are afraid to speak that. And it's just like, I'm very, there is good people and doing their best. Like everybody who goes into politics, I believe they go in for the right reasons, like at the start. And, they are the best of us. In Canberra, they are meant to be the best of us. They are meant to be the best of us. But it seems that we are losing something in that process in between for them to become the best of us. And that frustrates me, because I watch people who are trying their best get nowhere because others are afraid. The fear that people have is just, and I know what it's like to live in fear. I think we all know. I think we've all had our own personal battles, but it's knowing that you're afraid, facing it and doing it anyway. It doesn't matter if it's the right way or the wrong way. It is doing it and coming at that end and saying, we could have done that better, but let's look at it the next time. Like, you know, let's work and push through without, like, the fear is just, as you were saying, the sadness, the people who are just do not look as if they are enjoying this small time we have here because of fear. That is sad.
Yeah.
That saddens me.
Fear is the virus, courage is the cure. We've said that from a early March straight on, and it's the truth. You're in a domestic abuse situation, or the victim is the one with the power, really, when they get the courage to say enough, stop. And I do wonder if Australians are getting to a point. Maybe they're scared of violence, but I don't think we need violence. We just have to go enough. This is unacceptable. You know, we live in the shadows of the shrines. We owe those soldiers an obligation to the freedom they gave us. It wasn't ours to give away. It's just ours to defend and propagate. And we've given it away. And I think as a generation, and maybe that's why there's so many mature people in the movement, as a generation, I think we have an obligation to bring these freedoms back, freedom of choice, freedom of speech, and understand what they are. Because I think they're parents to another freedom, which is what your journey of. So you've led your own life. You've been the navigator of your own life. Even though you took the alcohol route or the drug route, even though you did, you're still the architect of your own life. Freedom of choice. And then you're an artist too. So you're writing what you're doing, and freedom of speech. Those two parents give birth to you, the freedom to be you. And then that's what you're here now. You're bringing, this is who I am. I've been on, I don't know how old you are. You've been on this journey for this long, and this is who I am now. And you've reached here through the freedom to be your own navigator. And we're robbing that from the next generation. As if to say, no, we're going to tell you how to live. We're going to tell you how to think. We're going to tell you what's right and wrong. It's a recipe for disaster.
There are people now in this country who are worried about going to jail if they criticise the Prime Minister. I mean, that's insane. It's completely insane.
Albertini.
It's a national hobby criticising the Prime Minister. What the heck?
And let's be honest, like, if you're going to take on that role and you're going to become that person, then you should be criticised or you should be praised. I'm sure he would take all the praise if it was coming, but you should be criticised. That is the job you're in. Like, you don't go, like, if you're doing a job because of where it puts you, and not because what you can do when you're there, you shouldn't be in that job. That's the whole purpose. Like, that's why people at ground level get fired. They get fired because you're not doing the job. Like, you're not doing it well enough. Sorry, you've had your 3 warnings, you've had your letter. Away you go. See you later. You know, that's the whole point. Like, and that is what life is all about. Life, like, I do not want to see my 4 sons afraid to live life just because life is being branded as being this. Now, I think civics are not being taught in schools, and they need to be taught in schools, because we need to teach our kids that you are free, but to be in a free nation, you need to lose some of those freedoms. You know, that is the thing. Like, you know, if you break the law, you go to jail. Great. Just let's not have stupid laws, like, you know, but, you know, and I feel that because we've removed religion from education, we've lost a moral battle, and we live with these modern ethics, but morality is only taught through faith. You can only learn that real deep morality through understanding where it all came from and why we have those. And I mean, we're not asking kids to become born again Christians in that. We're asking them, just look at this book. This book here is the reason why, oh, that book's wrong. Well, that might have been wrong, but they changed. They moved on. They moved up. Then there was another group of people that came along and it changed. They moved on. But the one thing they did keep was these 10 rules here. 10 rules. I mean, I went, like, you know, like we all have rules that we have our own morals in our own head. And as you said, Michael, you can travel a life whatever way you want, but you're traveling it with your own sense of values and morality in there, you know? And as you said, John, in regards to people that are in Canberra, you're feeling that there's a lot of them who are just beige in that. That is because they are not following what they believe. They're following what I feel anyway. They're following something that they believe is greater than themselves. You know, like they believe in something and they want to see it grow. But unfortunately, that's not working right now. And we just need to get I was getting a bit passionate there. It was getting a bit close to me. I could have been getting a bit of a talking to for the wife, like, you know.
It's hard, man. As the first man, you got to go back to swatches. What do you think, beige or beige?
I'm like trying to go to myself. I'm trying to say, oh, Colin, like, you know, but, you know, I didn't want to be black and blue, like, would you call it? So I might just stay a wee bit on the flipping purple slide, you know.
First man with character, we can't have that.
I mean, don't get me wrong, like, I can walk with my wife. I love going to different things with my wife just because of where I've grown up and where I'm from. I'm always like, wow,
yeah,
this is amazing.
I totally get that.
But like, I'm like, also like when it comes to hearing her talk, I love to watch how people are just like, oh, I never thought of it that way. But then action is where real change comes from, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, if you don't put the things into action, like the things that I got taught on how to get over my alcoholism and drug addiction, if I hadn't put into action the things that other people had done and had gone through and how they did it, and I wouldn't be sitting here. No friggin' way. And that's the other thing. If we're going to change the past, if people want to change the past, well, let's change it to Santa. You know, like, what you call, make it worse than what it was, because it was, you know, like, give it something that we can all stand up and go, come on, let's move forward, which I think we've already got and everything that we're doing. But yeah, it's just, yeah, I got to be like, I almost gave myself away there, like, you know.
So when you were doing This Land documentary about that song, the creation of the song, which I mean is incredibly well timed, did you think did you intend it to be a powerful political statement, or it's just become that in the post-Bondi, post-hate speech laws world that we're now stranded in? Did you mean it to be as political as it is become and has become?
I don't think I meant it to be as political, because it all stemmed from me being cancelled. You know, I've only done one gig in a year. Like, I just did my Tamworth show, and the last gig I did last year was my Tamworth show. I've only done one gig. I'm not getting work, and it's all because of my wife being my wife. You know, it's not all because of that. It's also because I stood up. When October 7 happened, I stood up with Israel and my Jewish family, like, you know, my Jewish friends. Like, I stood with that, and you know, if I believe in something, I will stand up for it, and I will fight for it, and I will fight for it till the death. Like, you know, like, that's one thing I will do. I will fight for it. And the referendum, when I stood with Jacinta for the referendum, that just was me putting another nail in the coffin. I mean, I lost management when like Jacinta was suing the ABC. I lost my management. I lost booking agents. Like, my career was just gone. It was just taking a dive from COVID to the referendum, to Jacinta becoming a politician, to the referendum, to now. So, you know, if people want to cancel me and they want to shut me down, I sat there for a while and I felt sorry for myself, went through the whole, oh, poor bugger me, and got angry and resentment with Jacinta. I decided, no, I'm going to do something different. I want to show why I love Australia, instead of people showing me why I should hate it, you know. And I could have easily have just went, oh, I hate you all, like, and become this miserable old fart, like, you know, sitting there. But, you know, I'm a father of 4 boys. I need to show them there's other ways of beating something that's putting you down, like, you know. So I think it was after the referendum. I was speaking to John Roscoe for the IPA, and I told him I had this idea where I wanted to do a song that highlighted everything that I loved. He says, "Oh, let's see how we can do that." So we went round cap in hand, and I had lunches, and I spoke to people, and they supported it, and one or two people were great supporters, and they gave us a great bit of money, and you know, I got Wayne Davies involved, who was the guy who did the adverts for the referendum thing with Jacinta, and he tells a story beautifully. He tells it in a way that I am fully that brimstone and fire, like, would you call it? But he says, let's soften it, let's tell a story different. And I got my mate Brad who I've done a lot of work with, to help me produce the song. So at the time, and that was 2 years ago, you know, the project started 2 years ago, just at the end of just as we came out of the referendum and after the election result, we basically started really working on that. And I had no idea that what I was doing was going to be something that would be such an impactful, could be something so impactful that I could be doing something that I would be leaving a stamp that would help bring back that love. And it's not going to be easy. As I said earlier, love is the working part of life. You've got to work at it. Just like if you're in love with somebody, you don't always love them, but you have to, like Jordan Peterson, I love Jordan Peterson. He said that if those times that you're feeling like you're not loving your wife the way that you used to, and you're feeling really frustrated, you need to go back to that point where you did love them and get that feeling back, you know. And that's what I want to do. I want to create a feeling that people can go back to, so that they can feel that love again for what it means to be Australian. Because I've met so many people along this journey who are new Australians, or they are first Australians, as they like to call them, or they're like Michael. And basically, you know, for me, that is the golden thing. That's the golden thing. Jacinta says, when you're born here, you've won the lottery. I like to say, I bought my numbers. I picked the right numbers. So yeah, that's the thing. Like, so for me, John, I had no idea that it would come. The things that were going on, that have gone on, would what I've done would help that.
Well,
I
we're
think it's
certainly
hard,
running
though.
out of time.
2 seconds, John. John, can I just get in? I think it's hard as an artist to write something you think, oh, this is going to change the world, or this is going to affect this. I think the song you wrote is just what's coming out of you at the time. And then once you have it, you go, okay, what can I do with this? It's very hard to write something agenda-based and make it a really good piece of art. You know, that's why Dylan, I think, got in a lot of trouble. Everyone says, what are you trying to say? What are you trying to say? But this shit was pouring out of him. You know what I mean? So he didn't really even know what it was himself, you know, but it just was right on the button at the right time, you know?
Yeah. And
I think now, just for yourself, I just think it's never been a more important time to be an artist. And artists around the country, real artists, have a choice. You can either go to the false gods of materialism and fame and all of this, and there really are false gods, because if you get there and yet your art is hollow, you're just doing it to jump through hoops. Where now, if you actually just have the courage to let your absolute authentic voice out, put it out to the universe unafraid, well, then you are contributing towards balancing us towards the light. You know what I mean? It's this has never been a more important time, and that's the reward. I just got to say, most people don't know, but so when I came to Melbourne to be a playwright, and I'd only ever seen one play in my whole miserable life, an amateur Irish play, which really moved me. And I thought, I reckon I could do that. So I came to Melbourne, got an actress pregnant, had a few kids, so I had a few setbacks. But once the kids were at a point where I could get back to it, I became Australia's independently funded playwright. People just loved my work. I never read Shakespeare, couldn't understand it. It was just too head fucking for me. And I just really just enjoyed writing stories and putting it on. And just before they cancelled me at COVID, I had Bruce Beresford about to direct one. I had the Army using one of my plays, a suicide prevention play, because they said it worked with men. I've got that's in Edinburgh at the moment. They're looking to put it on in Edinburgh. And all this shit happening. And then they go, okay, you've got to segregate audiences. And I just put out a call online and said, my company's not segregating audiences. That's a crime against the culture's soul, and I'm not going to participate. And I've been cancelled ever since. The theatres now won't touch me. We had a text from the ABC saying, because Michael has evolved into a lie-spewing anti-vaxxer surrounded by vile human beings, we can no longer support his work. And so I'm cancelled. But now I live in this bus, just drifting around the country, listening to a voice inside me. And I've got a Starlink, I've got a generator, and a little bit of funding, hardly any. And I reach 6 million people a month.
Wow.
Which is how many Australian playwrights, fuck all, because no one goes to theatre in Australia. People, they're nothing, but now here I am, and I don't even know how it happened, but I'm still doing the same fundamental thing. I'm me. Yeah. I'm going to be me, and I don't fucking care what anybody thinks. And if you don't like me, don't fucking watch me.
Yes.
Simple as that.
And from like, I never played or wrote music in Scotland. Everything I do is done here. Since the day when I decided to stop all my fun stuff, as I put it at the beginning, when I thought I was going to stop being fun and I was going to be a serious kind of guy, when I stopped taking the drink and the alcohol and the drugs, I basically started playing music, and that's when I found the voice that God gave me, and that's when shit started to happen. Like, it started to happen in a way that it happens, and I'm just lucky that I've met some of the most amazing people I've met in my life. Have come out of me becoming sober and clean. Because one, I remember them, and two, I can hear their stories. I can hear what they're saying, and listen to what you've gone through, Michael, and also when I because John and I met when I was supposed to be doing this TV series with ADHTV, where I was going to do this thing where I interviewed a whole load of people, but ADH just went through a change. There was things happening, and it never happened. So, and I got to meet John and hear his story and hear what he was doing, and that's when I realized that things were just coming to life, and that is it is one of the best things to realize, that you're always growing, and that if we are to sit stagnant and not think about change, as in if we think that we are better, we get to a point where we're better. I'm better, what you call it, then you are not. You need to remember, change is always evolving. It is always evolving. Doesn't mean you have to change your fundamental depth and who you are, but the fundamental change of moving forward, that's what it's all about.
I know John wants to go, but we have a live audience here, and Linda Costa wants to go. I wonder how he and Jacinta met.
Does she want which story does she want? Because there's a couple of there's a couple of good ones. Would you call? Do you want the real one, or do you want Colin's made up one? Because Colin's made up
the one that involves the sex tape will be good.
I like to say to people that I was happily walking down the street one day, and the next minute I had this sharp pain in my head. Woke up and I had a new colour telly and a couple of new kids, and Jacinta standing over me going, "You're claimed," with a big nulla. But it's not as exciting as that. I was playing a gig in a place called Annie's in Alice, and I was with my offside at the time, and Jacinta says we had met once before in the A&E accident emergency, and basically we had met. We had both our boys, but the day I remember seeing Jacinta was I was doing a gig. She walked in through the bar, and I just goes to him offside, and I said, "Who's that?" And he went, "Oh, that's Jacinta Price. She's on TV." and stuff. She does Yamba's Playtime, and I said, really? I says, she's amazing. I said, I'm gonna marry that lassie, you know. And he turned around, he just turned around and went, yeah, whatever. He says, because it was like
whatever,
they're playing down, and here I am, you know, like here I am. You know, I know it sounds completely corny and just those mad things, but as John was saying earlier, Jacinta fills up her room when she walks into it. You know, she fills it up. She's got this magic, like, you know, Jacinta would turn around and say, when Colin's on a stage, that's what he does. You know, like, so the two of us together, just something was happening. Like, you know, like for me to come from the life I had from the other side of the world, discovering my soul underneath a rock in the desert of Australia and Alice Springs of all places, and then to meet Jacinta, and then Jacinta to be where she is, that I had no control over that. No control over that at all. That was God stuff. That is God working. And like, I don't care what anybody's going to say, yeah, you hear about it. Not to me. That, where I came from, yeah. To just,
don't go all mushy on us. The most profound question of the night from the audience is, do you dye your moustache? People want to know, do you dye your moustache?
Thanks,
I tidy it up because the wife, I was in Nashville and I was doing a photo shoot thing, and this woman came up and she says, I want to do something to your beard. She just tidied up all the dark parts, and that's how all the dark parts come out. And she basically said, that's how your beard should be. And I came home with it, and Jacinta went, you're keeping that. Because one of my favorite stories is Wind in the Willows. I love Wind in the Willows. Like, I've always loved Wind in the Willows, like, you know. And I've now got to the age now where I'm Jacinta calls me a badger, you know, because I'm keeping the old ways, like, you know.
Well, Badger, we're out of time. It's been a really wonderful interview, and I really appreciate you coming on. So any final words? What's the future? The country, of course, is in obvious need of healing, and let's hope that the song, This Land, and the doco, which is about to come out, and you and your lovely wife will all be a part of that national healing. So any final words?
Yes. Thank you so much, James. It's been a beautiful, and Michael, beautiful. I like John, as always. I love sitting with John. John's like this incredible. He's got this knowledge that when you sit with John, it just comes off with it, and you're like, where does that come from? But Michael, it's been so beautiful to meet you too. I just feel like when we it's been like it's not really been like an interview. It's just been shooting the shit, really, like, you know. And I feel that this here is what more of Canberra need to do. You know, they need to just shoot the shit a bit more and just say, all right, then, this is what, and I hope that's what happens, because I really have enjoyed just, you know, there's always, you know, just being honest with one another. If you can be honest with one another, like, what you call it, that's the thing, like, it just, and that's the authenticity, that's the bravery. And if everything does go to shit, I'll make sure I'm in the same jail, what you call it, block as you guys, and we can all hang out together and read a few more books and that, like, you know. Can't wait to see what happens, like, you know.
Well, there's a just to finish, there's I used to, when I was young, I used to get scared that I was a mushroom, you know, kept in the dark and fed shit, until I reached my age now where I realized I'm a mushroom. And but one thing I have learned, or one thing I choose to believe, is that life can be really hard sometimes, but the gods gave us one thing to get us through everything, and that's each other. And that's why we can't be divided. We're together. This is how we cope. This is how we got here. So, it's been beautiful to meet you, Colin. Really, real pleasure to meet you, brother. Yeah.
And John, I want to say one thing just before. I don't believe the Liberal Party's dead. I believe the Liberal Party is going through a change that will come out the better, because I want to finish on this. I grew up in such a socialist nation. Scotland's such a socialist nation. It was such a socialist nation. And, you know, I never voted Labour in my life because I saw what socialism did to my community, right? It killed it. It did kill it in the end. It killed it in the end. And I was never going to be a Tory because that was a class thing for me. Conservatism was a class thing. So I was SNP. I wanted independence for Scotland so we could do it ourselves, right? That was freedom, like, you know. But I went home this time and I saw what that SNP for the last 17 years has done. And it's done the whole yellow, you know, that diversity thing is everywhere, right? But what I will say is this. When I read about Sir Robert Menzies, and we call him Menzies in Scotland, he's no Menzies, it's Menzies. I read something that I felt I understood more clearer. And I just feel if we can return back to the coreness of what he was trying to bring, those people that we were talking about that in the middle will regain their voice again. They will regain their voice again. It's just that we need those in Canberra to be as brave as Menzies was and sharing that vision. That is all it is. That's all it's needing. It's just needing that, you know, strength. That's it. So I believe the Liberal Party will come back. I do.
The rise of the muddling middle. There's something to look forward to. We'll be back next week at the same time.
I have to say, you look very handsome this morning, John. Now that you've got the light in front of you, you're looking very handsome today.
Oh, yeah.
Well, thank you.
Look at that! Look at that smile. Okay, we're going out with this song, this land. So we're going out with the same song we started with, and I'm going to play another song after it called "Awoke," which I was listening to and really loving. So I'll play the two songs to go out with, and we'll see you tonight with Mark Aldridge and Dr. Oosterhouse. So take care, Colin. Thanks so much, John.
Take
Great
care.
show.
Much love.
Thank you, Colin. Thanks a lot.
Bye.
See you.
Bye.
Take care. God bless.
I braved the 7 seas, lost in time, seeking out freedom far and wide, with a heart burdened by the night. The spirit yearned to be a bird in flight. I found myself beneath the southern sky. It taught me the song of goodbye, but I never could run from my mind. So I traveled deeper to find I belong to this land. I belong to this land. Across this red hot dusty land, so far and from my mother's hands, and the people, they spoke in different tongues, and I knew this is where I belong. We belong to this land. We belong to this land. Belong to this land. We belong to this land. This place we all call home sees me as one of its own, and no matter where I travel or how far, the dreaming brings a soul back to its heart. We belong to this land. 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 We belong to this. We belong to this land. We belong to this. We belong to this land. My blood. We belong. Oh, your blood. We belong to this land. Our blood is Australian. We belong to this. We belong to this land.
Great with that. This is a second song called Awoke. I've listened to this a few times. I really love it. So have a listen to this. Oops.
Twisted like a beast. I was seeking out a new day. Yeah, fear ripped into me. Wouldn't take what I was offered, 'cause I felt I don't belong. But I wanna see your face now, 'cause I wanna feel like home. Drum in my chest is pushing me forward. And all I'm asking is all I need. And clock has me hanging for your love. And all I'm asking is for my peace. We'll run through the old town, dancing with the shadows, and we won't fight with the past now, 'cause it's lying in the fallow. And if living is for forgiving, go easy please, 'cause this desert's like a blanket, and its dreams are killing me. Drum in my chest is pushing me forward. And all I'm asking is all I need. Clock has me hanging for your love. And all I'm asking is for my peace. I woke from a dream, twisted like a beast, feeling like I'd found a new day, the flowing from me.